Start sending in hate mail. Take one.
Today we are going to talk about the top 100 Christian rock albums of all time. We're going to talk about rock journalism. We're going to talk about lists. People love lists. Lists. Welcome to the Heavens Metal Show. This is the 25th anniversary edition of HM Magazine. It came out in July of 2010. And because it was the 25th anniversary issue, we had some specialty articles, one of which was compiling a list of the 100 Christian rock albums of all time. And most of the shows you see do a countdown. They go from like 10 to 1. I'm just going to go through here and do some overall discussions on this, instead of this being a video of the top 100 or the top 10 Christian rock albums of all time. So, to break the norm and to be like nobody else in the entire universe, I'm going to talk about album number 1 first. What is U2, the Joshua Tree, doing on a Christian rock album list? Well, I remember a conversation with Brandon Ebel, the owner of Tooth and Nail Records. And we were talking about this list, and he asked me if the Joshua Tree was going to be eligible. And he said, if it is eligible, it's got to be number 1. And, it makes a lot of sense. And did it change the world? Well, I don't know if it changed the world, but it sure changed a lot of things, this album did. Was it a huge bestseller? Yeah, it was a huge bestseller. It had a ton of singles off of it. A lot of these songs remain staples in the U2 concert set list, and which is a great concert. You should see if you ever get the chance again. Here's what some people said about it. Joshua Tree is one of my favorite albums of all time. Sonny Sandoval, P.O.D. The Joshua Tree is not only one of the greatest rock albums of all time, says Paul Kupek of One Bad Pig, but look how its sound has directly influenced modern worship. The impact of U2's style on the church of today is unquantifiable. How about that? Doug Pinnick of King's X says, this CD was the turning point for me with U2. This album was so inspiring to the world. It was a universal cry of spirituality and common sense of human feelings. On Joshua Tree, Bono continued to inspire me to write honest lyrics, like he did when they first came out in 1980. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It helped bring me out of my religious insanity. It was a perfect album in my opinion. The biggest thing I noticed about this CD was after 4 awesome records, there was a new maturity in songwriting. God bless Bono and U2. So, U2, at the time, made up of 3 out of 4 Christians documented. And it's been documented since then that the 4th person, the non-Christian of the band, is now a Christian. So, Adam Clayton, the bass player, has come to Christ. And you know what? That says a huge statement about the spiritual walk and the Christianity of Bono, Larry, and The Edge. I don't know these guys, so talking about them as if they were a quantity or a consumable product, or talking about their spirituality like I have some sort of ownership of it, can't touch that, can't do that. But if you have an entity, a group of 4 people who hang around each other and tour and have barking dogs around them, then that influence is either going to turn you off of the belief system of Christianity, or it's going to turn you on to it. And so the fact that Adam Clayton came to Christ after being with U2 for several years, that at least says something about their faith. So anyway, I've heard that U2 was courted by some Christian record labels, but thank God that they weren't signed to a Christian label, because their impact on the world is so much bigger, so much more impact. Some people are going to send me hate comments for even talking about U2 at all, because they've gone on record as being pro-choice, which is kind of antithetical to most evangelical Christians on that issue of innocent life being taken in the womb. Some people think that Bono cussing in a movie disqualifies him from being a Christian. There's all kinds of people that don't think U2 qualifies as a Christian band. So, sorry, You weren't the editor of HM Magazine for 28 years. You didn't get to put together this list. I did. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's just a list. It's an opinion. It's a journalist putting his credibility, his experience, and his history on the line to put out this list. So made it #1 Christian rock album of all time. They didn't call themselves a Christian band. They were Christians in a band. At least 3/4 of them were when they recorded this. This album has a lot of spirituality in it. Where the Streets Have No Name talks about heaven. Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For confesses speaking in tongues. It's speaking about believing in Jesus, and basically saying the song I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, that throws a lot of people off. They think, are they denying Christianity now? No, they're basically saying that I've come to faith, but I still haven't found where I haven't arrived yet. I haven't found what I'm looking for. I'm not in paradise at this point. The kingdom of God is not present around me 24/7, 365, everywhere I look. There's work to be done on this fallen planet. There's my little dissertation on the song Where the Streets Have No... I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Anyway, so #1, let's move on. Let me go over the 5 criteria I used when compiling this list. Greatness. Had to be a great album. Classic factor. Is it a classic? Classics don't come out every day. A classic is something you listen to 10 years later with, you still love it. Historical impact. An album that changed the landscape of music or set a precedent, like Jimi Hendrix's guitar playing, that changed rock and roll. It had a historical impact. Popularity. Was it a bestseller? Was it popular? That's a factor. It shouldn't be the only factor, because sometimes, everybody loves crap. I won't throw out any names here, but Michael Jackson. I like the Jackson 5's early material. Never got into Michael Jackson's solo material. And the 5th criteria is, do I love it? Obviously, from a writer, the person who's putting together a list has got to love it. Any one of these 5 factors is not enough to sustain it and keep it on the list. But if you can score high in greatness, I love it, classic, historical impact, and popularity, you've got staying power there, and you might be on the list. Okay, let's go from #1 on the list to number 101. An album that didn't make it to this list. An album that a band that I caught a lot of heat for. Why on earth did you not have Resurrection Band, Res Band, or Res on this list? Come on, Doug, you idiot. You freaking idiot. Okay, so Res Band scores high on the historical impact. Like out of 1 through 10, 10. 1 through 100, 100. They had a historical impact on Christian rock and what became Christian heavy metal. No doubt. Do I love it? Okay, so Res Band has a lot of good albums. My 2 favorites are Between Heaven and Hell and the very first one, Awaiting Your Reply. Between Heaven and Hell has a song called Shadows, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest songs in Christian rock history. Such a wonderful song. So good, in fact, that I put together a sidebar in this article, top 20 Christian hip-hop albums of all time. That's not what I was referring to. I put a few sidebars in here, but one was the HM Magazine mixtape, where if a song, whether it was on an album that was on this list or not, needed to be talked about. And Shadows was one such song. I had to talk about it. But Between Heaven and Hell, as a whole unit, in my opinion, and I'm probably just an idiot, didn't stack up in my criteria and evaluation of all these other albums. I went through hundreds. I had a stack of over 500 CDs and vinyl and cassette tapes on my desk for the 2 to 4 months that the process of putting this list together was. And it was definitely there in the running, and it got beat out by other albums that had more strength as an album. So Between Heaven and Hell had Shadows on it, which could propel it and maybe should have propelled it onto this list just based on the strength of one song alone. And if I could go back and change, I would find a way to sneak that in there. I might take PAX 217, which I think was number 100, and I might just bump that for Yeah, PAX 217's debut album was album number 100. I would go back in time and bump that from the list, make them 101, and put Res Band Between Heaven and Hell as number 100. But is it a classic album? Do I love it? Was it popular? Does it have greatness to it? In my eyes, and again, I'm just an idiot, and I was wrong about this. And a lot of people think that, Doug, this is a glaring omission from the list. Resurrection Band should have been on there. They're one of the pioneers of Christian rock. Come on, got to find a place to put them. Was Larry Norman on here? Yes. Was Petra on here? Yes. Was Stryper on here? Yes. Jerusalem on here? Yes. So historical impact alone definitely put them in very high consideration. This was just a difficult decision for me, and one that I knew I would pay for. And Glenn Kaiser hasn't spoken to me in 3 decades. I'm just kidding. Glenn and Guy are good. So anyway, Resurrection Band, Between Heaven and Hell. Why didn't it get on this list, Doug? Besides being an idiot, because as a whole, I was looking at the whole package, not just one song. And to me, the album didn't hold up track for track as 10 plus songs. Let's see. Going back to the top 10 is really awesome. You look at these albums, like P.O.D. Satellite. One of the criteria I had for this list was 1 album per band. Stryper can't have 4 albums on this list, even though in some people's eyes and world, maybe there should. If you're going just by albums alone, Doug, is a double standard here. If Stryper happened to have 3 great albums that are 3 of the best albums of all time, they should be on the list. This 1 album per band criteria sucks. Well, it was my criteria. I wanted to put as many bands on this list as possible, and so having that rule made you spotlight an album that was the best of this band. And this was their best-selling album, had the biggest hits on it. A ton of these songs are in their concert set list today. So, that's it right there. And sold, what did it sell, 5 million albums? Gazillions of kids. Here's what Noah Bernardo Sr., the father of the drummer Love, said. The prayer was that God would use this album to get it in front of gazillions of kids. He honored the prayers of the saints. True dat. And this one guy, I don't know who he is, Sonny Sandoval, says, Satellite changed my life. Amen to that. So, number 2, To Hell with the Devil by Stryper. This is number 3, actually. To Hell with the Devil by Stryper. This album took them over the top. As Michael Sweet used to say, the song, honestly, the ballad on here, took them from large clubs to arenas. That was the song on this album that changed that band's life. But they had Calling on You, Free, and honestly, 3 mega hits on this album. Just a killer album. Surprise for some people, The Choir. Incredible. They're an alternative rock band. This list is called Christian rock albums. It's not metal. And this album is just a piece of art. And songs flow and ebb and kind of refrain each other on this thing. Great. This band has just put out quality art. They're a career band, thank goodness, because we get to enjoy their art. Fantastic album. Going over the rest of the top 10 real quick. Altar Boys, Gut Level Music. This album is just amazing. Steve Rowe of Mortification, death metal guy, says, a timeless alternative rock classic, outdoing not just all Christian rock releases, but equal to or better than their secular counterparts, The Clash, Bruce Springsteen, and John Cougar Mellencamp. Still on rotation in my music listening regulars. A strong Christian message played and presented with unprecedented passion and arranged with ageless appeal. The song You Found Me is could be the greatest punk rock love song from God ever written. Actually, to God ever written. Some guy named Doug Van Pelt quoted that. 77's self-titled album. Amazing stuff. Do It for Love. Such a great song. King's X, Faith, Hope, Love. Their 3rd album. Some people would go, why is this band on the Christian rock album list? They didn't call themselves a Christian rock band. Well, come on. If you know King's X, you know that they were Phil Keaggy's backup band for a while. They were Morgan Cryer's backup band for a while. You don't argue about Morgan Cryer and Phil Keaggy being Christian rock. And Doug Pinnick, I think, played with Servant for a while. Servant's a Christian rock band. Did Servant make this list? I don't think so. But incredible album, Faith, Hope, and Love. Deep spirituality to it. Even the album artwork had incredible spiritual depth and something to say. Stavesacre, from the Remnants of the Crucified, a super group, the second incarnation of Mark Solomon and Jeff Ballou of the Crucified. Just great modern rock. Me Without You, Brother Sister, some really cool alternative rock music shows up in the top 10 here. Then Vengeance Rising. This was the #1 Christian heavy metal album of all time in the companion publication Heaven's Metal fanzine. The same year, the 25th anniversary of HM/Heaven's Metal, this was voted #1 Christian metal album of all time, and Res Band showed up on that list. So what else can we talk about? I've told the story about Switchfoot many times, where when this album came out and they were playing Austin, Texas, their publicist flew to Austin, and the band took us, the HM Magazine staff, out for dinner at Stubbs Barbecue before the concert. And John Foreman told us at the dinner table, I was talking to my wife today, and he said, "Yeah, we're taking the guys of HM Magazine out to dinner." And she said, "What? Why are you taking them out to dinner after what they said about you?" And one of our album reviewers gave this album a bad review, and the ratings on it weren't that good. And so in #11, best Christian rock album of all time, I was wrong about the review that I published. I didn't write that review, but I let my writer have his freedom to say. An excerpt from HM number 99 said, "This album was perfectly titled, and I'm not talking about the words the or beautiful, because the album's called The Beautiful Letdown. I guess HM was wrong on that one, huh? Indeed, we were wrong." Scattered Fuse on here, Precious Death, Daniel Amos, Tourniquet, Sixpence None the Richer. Man, only visiting this planet. Talk about pioneers. This is my favorite Larry Norman album. I like a lot of his albums, but I've gone on way too long talking about this list. I'll post a link of this list on this video so you can check it out. Join the discussion. This is always a great hot debate. What's the best Christian rock album of all time? And since this came out in 2010, are there any albums that have come out since 2010 that should be on this list that would bump somebody like PAX 217 off? Who would that be?